some insanely impressive quotes about Jared Verse going on from players around the league. Some former teammates, some former opponents. I want to read you a couple, then we'll discuss at length. Jared Verse came in, voted the number 35 player on the NFL's top 100 list. As part of their explanation in the voting, Kyle Juszczyk, who's played against Jared Verse, has never been a teammate of Jared Verse's, I want to point that out, but has played against him, had this to say about the Browns' new defensive end. Jared Verse is one of the best young up-and-coming players in the NFL, going on a ledge and saying he could be on the Aaron Donald type level at some point in his career. High praise. Trent McDuffie, who was traded to the Los Angeles Rams earlier this offseason, got to spend a couple months as Jared Verse's teammate before the Myles Garrett trade, was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and had this to say about Jared Verse. Let's take a listen.
I remember when Myles Garrett got traded like that day, and the news broke. Sean McVay told the team, and we went into our DB meeting, and we didn't even meet. We just talked for hours straight. Coach was just like, I'm gonna open the floor, just get your feelings out. You know, obviously they lost Jared Verse. Jared Verse was a huge part. Guys loved him. I could tell, like, dude came to work, he had high energy, like he was loved. And I know that kind of hurt a lot of guys when they traded him.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about like the DB room taking an hour to have a conversation when the result of your team is you got Myles Garrett, who's the reigning defensive player of the year.
Yeah.
What came out of that conversation? Like, how were the emotions of the other guys that have been here longer than you and had known Verse for so long?
That's like one of my favorite moments from even just being on the team was Sean McVay standing up in the room with Jared Verse in the room, saying what happened, letting Jared Verse get up and say a few words. And every single guy went up to Jared Verse, shook his hand, gave him some words of like encouragement. And then like guys weren't even like excited, you know, like knowing you have Myles Garrett coming to the team. Like I heard the news, I started smiling, I looked around, I was like, oh. Everyone was like, whoa, hold on, like Jay Verse, like you gonna let him go? And I was like, that's special. Like right there, off rip for me, I was like, there's something here about just how tight knit this group is.
Feels like college.
Like it really feels like a home.
So you have Kyle Juszczyk comparing him to Aaron Donald. You have Trent McDuffie saying his teammates were basically shook and crying despite getting Myles Garrett because they had to let go of Jared Verse. Or how did you kind of interpret those comments and such high praise for Jared Verse? Or are we setting the bar too high for a guy?
Yeah, because I was about to ask you, what was the impact question here? And your impact question is, are we setting the bar too high for Jared Verse?
Yes.
I don't think we're setting the bar too high for Jared Verse as well. I think this is exactly who Jared Verse has always was intended to grow into and become. And when people speak that highly of you, they respect you as a person and as a player. Clearly, his energy is contagious, and clearly the way that he carries himself as a leader by example is something that rubs his teammates, former teammates, the right way. And when you hear him speak about what he's trying to bring to the Cleveland Browns organization, that sense of locker room leadership and that sense of leading by example and letting his energy and his work, you know, and his play overall be what speaks for him, then anybody is willing to get in there and go to battle with that, go to war with that, and want to get behind that and believe that that type of player can become one of the best players in the league. He's shown through his first few seasons in the NFL that he has what it takes to be a pretty damn good pass rusher, a pretty damn good football player overall, and his projection says he's not going to do anything but get better. But he brings a different element as a person and as a leader, and those traits that we wish that we got from 95. And so when you hear people talk about, yeah, we got Myles Garrett, that's cool. But man, we are losing somebody that's not only talented, but he's respected in so many different ways. I don't think that we are putting too much pressure, too much hype, or too much anything on somebody who is getting glowing reviews about who he is as a character and as a football player.
Couldn't agree more. You got to. You got to. And yeah, I challenged him. I said, man, listen, you got to take certain things personally. Myles Garrett is, I always say, is the greatest defensive player I've seen, especially playing the same position as defensive end. The way what he brings to the table is crazy. Like he got superhuman abilities at pass rush. But sometimes your abilities can be two things. Myles Garrett's abilities and superhuman power might be physical. I think Jared Verse is emotional. Like, and you can't play this game of football without no emotion. You can't. I'm a firm believer. You could talk about the analytics all you want. You need about 4 or 5 people in that locker room that are delusional, and you need your head coach to be delusional. And the thing I loved the most about what he said with Stephen A. Smith was, this not no rebuilding. It's great to have sacks, but I'm telling you, I'm not here to do that. Like, I always had a problem. I always did have a problem. We could talk about it from the outside looking in and about what we want from the Cleveland Browns. But the Cleveland Browns people inside the locker room got to actually want it more than we want it. They have to actually be a person that is willing to go on the limb and put everything on the line to get where you need to go. And sometimes I get frustrated because we sit here all the time and we talk about, oh, this is a rebuilding year. This is another rebuilding year. We need to go get a quarterback. All those things are important, but you need other players that can get it done. So we got a quarterback. That's great. You're trying to find a quarterback. But what I love about Jared Verse is the fact that he's been the hardest working dude on the football field while I've been there and watching him. He's been dominant. And also, he's been dominant, but taking time out of his day to go get Spencer Fano together and working with him after practice on moves and saying, you know why I'm kicking your butt, Spencer? Because you overset. You know why I'm kicking your butt? Because look at your hand placement. He's taking the time to work on his infrastructure, taking time to get the young dudes together. And those are things that you need as an emotional leader. Now, listen, we got to keep the main thing the main thing. All that sound good, but if you ain't putting up no production, it is what it is. We need the production on top of that. So it's not a one-fold thing. But if he can give me the production and the leadership ability is there, those are the building blocks that you need. And that coupled with Denzel Ward being back and Grant Delpit being back, those are the things that you need is foundation to actually start moving forward to the Cleveland Browns being a not just 1 year team, but a respectable team that you got to deal with year after year after year.
What was the exact trade? Myles Garrett went to LA and Jared Verse came to the Cleveland Browns. And what else came to the Cleveland Browns?
Picks.
Draft picks.
High picks. It's always going to be a 1-for-1 comparison. And that's, by very definition, is unfair because it wasn't a 1-for-1. We got great draft capital and we got Jared Verse. And they got the greatest defensive pass rusher that I've ever seen too. I'll back it. I watched Lawrence Taylor in his prime. I just think that nobody is as physically gifted or able to get to the quarterback like Myles Garrett. He just set the single season record. When he's done, he may well have the career record. I think he will. So let's not fall into the trap of, well, here's what Myles Garrett did in 2026.
Yeah.
And here's what Jared Verse did in 2026. Oh, this trade we got taken.
And Jay, by the way,
that's not fair.
That's what I'm afraid of happening.
I'll assure you
that is what I'm afraid of happening. And it's not fair. And I want to just co-sign your point.
That's why the very first thing I bring up is, okay, refresh my memory. What was the trade? We all know what it was. We got incredible draft capital from that pick, from that trade. So as much as the temptation is always going to be there, and the national guys will fall into the trap. In week 8, in games that Jared Verse is playing, they'll put up the side-by-sides, and they'll say, hey, well, remember in the offseason, Jared Verse was sent to Cleveland, and Myles Garrett went to L.A., and look at Myles Garrett's numbers, and look at Jared Verse's numbers. This is a disappointment. When you look at these numbers, what makes Myles Garrett a cartoon character or a video game character are the tackles for loss and the sacks. Those numbers aren't realistic, guys. Nobody's put those kind of numbers up over 2 seasons in the history of the NFL, and no one will. But if you look at Jared Verse's numbers, he's got more tackles. He's not a one-dimensional player. He's going to stop the run. And he's also going to provide the element that you talked about, leadership. And as much as I love Myles' production, I thought this last season was all about Myles getting a sack record for Myles. Myles had divorced himself from the idea that this was ever going to be a good football team, and he just said, I'm going to get mine. I'm going to go break the record.
You know, Jay, I was, as the relationship guru, I remember ultimately I decided I was getting my first divorce, and the only divorce, by the way. That's the only one I got. I said, I don't keep hostages. If you in a relationship,
you want to be here, you don't.
If you don't want to be in a relationship, then I'm not going to keep you hostage. Myles Garrett didn't like the direction of the Cleveland Browns. He wanted to go play for a championship.
And I don't blame him for that, by the way.
And I don't blame him.
No.
And the Cleveland Browns granted him his wish and got him to a place because, we're not into hostages. And I love the fact what Jared Verse did. He could have pouted. He could have cried. He could have been angry or upset. He shows me his character because he stood up in front of all the Los Angeles Rams and told each of them to go continue the road of what they was doing. Continue what you're doing. He then got on a plane being disappointed, knowing he was in the NFC Championship game this close as a locker room leader, a leader on that team, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He got on a plane and came to OTAs. He could have said, I'm gonna wait this out. You'll see me at camp. He could have pouted, screamed. The first thing he did, he went into Dylan Gabriel and said, hey, dog, I got the bag. Give me that number 8, and let's go cook.
While people was clowning and saying he just took it from a couple things, because I know we got to get the break. Mike, I'm with you. I pray that don't happen, that we don't get bogged down on this comparison. Do not come in at any point this season and ask me to make season stats, Myles Garrett, compared to Jared Verse.
Oh,
We're
it's
gonna have
coming.
to at
Because
some
I
point.
am going to come back to this
Oh, it's coming.
You know what? But on every one of those graphics, we also need to put down at the bottom that what the Browns got
Yeah.
also.
Yes.
Because if that's the case, then let's try to control what we can control and not making sure we're forcing that narrative of trying to compare.
But it's going to happen.
The players.
It's the natural thing to do. People are going to compare.
When Myles Garrett was here, I said this several times. I thought people had false expectations of what they wanted out of Myles Garrett after he clearly showed you who he is. Myles Garrett was always focused on being one of the best football players to ever play this game.
Yep.
Not once did he focus on being a team leader. Not once did he want to focus on being a guy that, bring other guys up, etc. And when people constantly saw that this is how Myles Garrett operate and this is who he is, you allowed yourself to get frustrated because instead of taking the evidence that's presented in front of you and just doing what you need to do with that, you still wanted to force your own agenda that because he's the best player in the league, he should be this way or he should operate that way.
I disagree with that a little bit, though.
Now, with Jared Verse, in my opinion, I think you get a breath of fresh air of this is what we wanted Myles Garrett to be as far as leadership in the locker room, outspoken about, making his teammates better, etc. And so for me, you can't compare the two players at all. There are two different players as far as like prototype, and they're clearly two different people.
I agree with that. And I know that you say Myles made it very clear, I'm not a leader. I don't want to be a leader. But at the same time, he's not playing an individual sport. He's not on the PGA Tour. He's not playing tennis. This is team sport.
Yeah.
And there is an expectation that comes with being the best player on your football team. And that expectation is that you're also going to be a team leader.
But if you don't live up to it,
he didn't live up to it. He was disappointed.
Then as a fan, you need to adjust once you see that this person is not going to do that.
See, I don't believe you do. I think that as fans, it's our responsibility to hold these players to a higher standard. When Ray Lewis was playing football, his stat column spoke for itself. But if you go ask anybody that played for the Baltimore Ravens, what was more important to the Baltimore Ravens, his stat column or what he brought to the group?
But that was naturally who Ray Lewis was.
Right. I know it was. But just because Myles wasn't that guy doesn't mean that as fans, we still can't expect that, because you expect your greatest player to also be a team leader. And he's just not. He never will be. I don't think he'll be that in Los Angeles.
I think there's a great difference between a great player and a great leader. I think you can have people that are really
But they're
good.
not mutually exclusive.
They're not, but it's very rare to get a person who is the top-notch leader and be the best player at the highest level.
When you start naming them, like you just start thinking about, okay, well, who were they?
Jordan.
Who are they?
Ray Lewis.
Michael Jordan,
Tom
Brady. Now what are you talking about now? Goats. You're talking about goats.
Yeah, there it's a package that comes with it. It's the reason why Reggie White is Reggie White.
Yes, you're right. And I'm not dinging Myles Garrett, because I like you, I've realized right away, wow, this guy just wants nothing to do with leadership. It doesn't mean it doesn't. As a fan, that always frustrated me. Because I just thought, well, bro, you can be a leader.
But we have to. I gotta give this interjection. I know we gotta go to break, but also you gotta think about.
No, we're good. This is good.
I gotta think about you are also a product of your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what Myles Garrett went through when he was here.
I get it.
Like that,
Oh, I
like
get it.
as a young impressionable player, where you've been through the teardowns, the picks. You thought you was on the right pace with Baker. You thought you had Chubb. You thought you was moving in the trajectory, and to see how many people came in and came out, and it's up and it's down. To at a certain point, you start to project. Like we talk about leadership, but there wasn't very many leaders on the Browns that be had to even show him.
There were none.
There were none.
No, and I get that, but there's a saying, like, if you don't like your environment, change it.
Oh, well, he did. He said, "I want to be traded."
He said, "I'm gonna go break a record."
Like he was like, "I'm gonna break a record. Then I want to be gone."
I love what Jared Verse. This is a great little control in the experiment. Because the talent is pretty much the same. You know, Myles Garrett played on this team last year. Jared Verse is going to play on this team this year. There's not a whole lot different other than that the rookies are now in year 2 and we got a new draft class. But what we're going to see is, you know, a rising tide picks up all boats. I want to see if Jared Verse is the leader that I saw him to be in LA, and he can be that guy here. I believe our defense can be even better. And oftentimes, because football is a complementary sport, when your defense is great, sometimes your offense rises along with it. And I think that Jared Verse is going to come in here, and we're going to watch after 3 games, we're going to say, this dude, it's his team already. It's his team.
I love both of the points that you're making. And there, like when you brought up Ray Lewis, it made me think about something. There's a guy from Cleveland, Ohio, played in the NFL, won a Super Bowl. If you go look up his numbers, they're very similar to Ray Lewis. Not in the Hall of Fame, should be. He doesn't get the recognition as a player that Ray Lewis did, but he has that unmatched leadership. You know who that guy was? London Fletcher. No matter what team London Fletcher played for, he had that C on his chest, and he was a guy that his energy, his leadership, it was so infectious that it impacted winning, despite him not necessarily being quote unquote the best player on his team. And I like when it's all said and done, and when both careers were over, it's like one guy's in the Hall of Fame, one guy's not. And he should be right there in the Hall of Fame.
By the way, it's a shame that Fletcher isn't in the Hall of Fame.
I think he'll eventually get it.
I hope so. He deserves to be there. His stats are right up there with the best to ever play the position. All right.